So, welcome to the Family Town Hall with Encourage Me I'm Young and Developing Young Athletes. Hosting this town hall was very, very important to get some information out to the parents during this crisis to make sure that they understand there are some things that they can do with their children actively while they are in quarantine. Tonight, our guest is Cornell Mann, University of Missouri assistant basketball coach. He will be talking about character, and David Edwards of Developing Young Athletes, where he'll be discussing thoroughly about injury prevention and how to move. And then I myself, we will close this out with suicide prevention, giving you some points, some things to recognize. And the reason being is kids 10 to 24 is the number 2, and African American boys 5 to 11 is number 1. And so we want to give you some tools that we use to make this thing go, right? And to solve these issues with our young men and our children. With that being said, we're going to move right in. I'd like to bring Cornell Mann on up. By the way, he's, giving some information for parents. We'll talk about that at the end, where you can order through me a poster that we'll make sure that the kids get it. And it's around his conversation. It's very, very important that we have these positive messages in our room and goal-oriented mindset for our children. So with that being said, I'm going to open it up to you, Cornell. It is your floor.
All right. Thank you for it. Thank you for inviting me. The questions will come to you, correct? Like if it's questions, they'll come.
Yeah.
Okay. The first thing I'd like to say is, obviously, I'm assistant men's basketball coach at the University of Missouri. I have coached at a number of universities throughout the United States, Division I, Division III, junior college, whatever. I think it's very important to recognize in my area, and I'll say this, if you follow me for the rest of my career, I'll say this before I get into any conversations or any interviews, even for that matter. I hope and pray that each and every student athlete not only receives, but excels in getting their education when they set out to go to whatever university him or her goes to. And not just get the paper part of the degree, but definitely get the content that comes with the degree. I think it's very important to understand and recognize that just a piece of paper is not enough. You need the content, you need it in your system, you need it in your brain, you need it to be a part of you in order to move to whatever is next for you in your life. All right, with that being said, so character. Character come into play a lot in basketball, in athletics, in life. Character is maybe to me, but to a lot of people, is the most important quality that a young person, old person, any person can have. So I'll start out by giving a basic definition of character, which is the mental and moral qualities distinctive to a person. With that, the strength and originality in a person's nature. All right, that's the definition of it. Now, for us, as a basketball coach in here at the University of Missouri, Coach Martin is the head coach. What we did was we talked to our kids, our players, young men, about what it meant for them to, what character means to them, what some of these traits that I'm gonna talk about, they are the ones who came up with this. So what Calvin was talking about was a poster that Coach Martin and our players did alone, and they came up with this stuff themselves, which I think is really awesome. We push and press our guys to create, to think, and to recognize both when things are good and bad, when character is good and bad, because obviously you can have both. All right, so number 1, in no particular order, 5 traits of good character. 5 traits of good character. Number 1, accountability. Accountability. Are you reliable as a person? Don't matter the gender, don't matter the makeup of a person. Are you reliable, accountability, okay? Number two, trustworthy. Develop your soul, develop your spirit, have love and respect for any and everybody. So when you hear people talk about, do you treat the janitor the same way you would treat, you know, the president, whatever that is? Well, that's what this is talking about. That's what the trustworthy, that's what the love and respect is. And that is due to everybody. If you got good character, it'll shine, it'll show. You don't really have to talk about the fact that you got love and respect, it'll show. And if you don't, then hopefully as adults and as peers, because you could be talking to another adult, not just a young person, we have to continue to check each other. As adults, we have to check young people. And when I say check them, I don't mean that to be negative. You should challenge them. Maybe that's a better term. So now they understand. A lot of times, young people, adults will let them slide. They'll let them slide. As a teacher, I would hear things in the hallway or in the class. You can never let that slide. If you let it slide, then you're part of the problem. You're an enabler. You're an enabler. All right. So that was number two. Number three, compassion. Compassion. Care, have concern for others. Care and having concern for others. Compassion, very, very important. And the suffix to that is passion. I think in order for Calvin to put this group of men together, these men all have to have compassion in order to even speak on the things that we're speaking of, and take time out to share and to try and encourage, challenge, or what have you, young people. And again, I don't want to just talk to young people, because let's not get it misconstrued. Older people can be, they could use some of this too. They could use some of this too. All right, number four, toughness. Pushing through difficult times. Pushing through difficult times, which is another way of saying it is just adversity. Pushing through adversity. All right, our guys, in terms of being a basketball player or a student athlete in general, you have situations that come about on the court, off the court. And even as a young person that's not a student athlete, that's not an athlete, you have things that come across where you have to show some toughness. And meaning you have to show toughness through adversity and push through these things. I think if you're gonna have a high level of success in your life, it's two things that you must have. You can go 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You can put them in whatever order you want, but it's two things to me that you must have as a part of who you are, and that's character and discipline. If you got character and discipline, it's just about nothing you cannot accomplish. You can accomplish just about anything in life with character and discipline. Is unmatched as a duo, is unmatched as partners, character and discipline. All right. Number 5, gratitude. Being thankful, showing appreciation, and having kindness. Showing appreciation and kindness. All right, it's gratitude. Now, character is manifested when your values, principles, morals, and standards are tested. An example, temptation, money, and power. That's when you will be tested most as a person. Young man, young woman, older, don't matter. Character is manifested when your values, principles, morals, and standards are tested. All right, and again, that's a part of adversity. Now, I'll give you an example, and this is an easy example for a young person to follow. If you find a wallet and turn it in with all the money in the wallet, that's good character. The same example, if you find a wallet, you take the money, you don't turn the wallet in, you don't try and find who these things belongs to, then that's bad character. All right. You know, the one way to measure one's character or self, one way to measure yourself in terms of your character is, how are you when no one is around? How are you? How are your morals? How are you? How do you treat people? How are you Do you have gratitude, toughness, compassion? Are you trustworthy, and do you have accountability? When nobody is looking, that's character. All right. Now, one thing that this is for athletics for sure, but for us independently, basketball, you have, in our opinion, and in my opinion, my personal opinion, character is the new toughness for athletics. Character is the new toughness. And here's why I say that. Because back when everybody that's on this, that's speaking today, when we grew up, we all had coaches who showed hard love. And meaning, it's plenty of times as a young athlete, I was snatched up by my coach. Whether I was snatched up by the back of my shirt, the front of my shirt, and choked up. And what was said while I was choked up was very important for me to hear. It was a changing situation. Well, in today's athletics, can't do that. You can't snatch a kid up. You can't choke a kid up. You can't get your point across in those ways. You can't yell and scream obscenities at a kid. You can't get your point across in those ways. And so what happens is, for a kid like me, you take me, I graduated in 1990. You take the Cornell Mann of 1990, fast forward, and you put me in the class of 2021. I'm sorry to tell you, without those men grabbing me up, I don't know if I make it this far. I don't. And it's different times, I get that, but I don't know if I make it this far. Like I said, it was very important, the message I got when I was snatched up. Very important. But the difference now is you have to have character, meaning I can't chase kids around on campus. I can't look to curse them out, snatch them up, make them run. You can't even make kids run right now. In college athletics, you cannot punish a kid. All right. And so what happens is, if you can't punish them, then you bet to make sure that you're recruiting kids and having kids in your program that has character, because character is the new toughness, because character is discipline, because character is all the time being on time, because character is being compliant with coaches, authority figures. It's being compliant. And when you're not being compliant at the college level, there's nothing nobody can do to you. Including they can't necessarily kick you out or kick you off the team in a lot of instances. And so it's very important that young people realize that your athletic career will come in, it'll be cut off short if you do not have some level of character, because in this day and age, our jobs depend on it. And we can't have, with social media and that, we can't lack in the area of character. And the last thing is, just to give another example, the last year in the NBA draft, if you haven't noticed, is a great percentage of NBA players being drafted from overseas. If I'm not mistaken, it's about 40% of the NBA is foreign-born players. All right, now, so what happened last year, you had, I think it was 7. They did a study on it. I cannot speak to the study or who did it, and I don't think they want you to know it anyway, but it was about 7 players. I know one of those players was Bol, who ended up with the Denver Nuggets, and is a very, very good basketball player and a huge talent. However, Bol, not by himself, but he was one of these 7 players who was not drafted in their place, meaning in the place they should have been drafted in per their talent and production, because of character solely. That's it. No other reason. When they do those interviews in the NBA, when you get an interview, that interview will take you and place you. You could be the number 1 draft pick in the country, and you could end up the number 15th draft pick in the country because you lack in character. You could be a first rounder and not get drafted because of lack of character. And so in the world in general, but in the athletic world, in the athletic arena, no matter what the sport is, especially revenue sports, football, basketball, those student athletes must have character, high profile, on the front of the program. And again, if you're a player that's good enough to play in the NBA and you lack in character, it will literally cost you money and or cost you your career. All right, that's where we at. We got any questions? Dwell, have you got some questions? I know. I call my brother Dwell. That's my brother. I can call him Dwell. But Calvin,
no questions. I just want to highlight the fact that how you said the dual, right? The importance of the dual, right? Having the two with character and discipline can take you a long way, and how it crosses education, class, right? Classism, the whole nine. And I think that's a brilliant piece. It gave me an idea. I'm always got creative ideas, so it gave me an idea because those are the things. Those two things together, character and discipline. I cannot disagree with you, and I love how you laid that out. So I didn't have any questions. I think it was very, very thorough. Anybody got any questions? Raise your hand if you do.
I could raise my hand. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that was awesome. And I just wanted to just pray, just break it down for what you said about and using a comparison and analogy that I was just thinking off the top of my head in regards of when a gardener prunes a tree. And when a tree is pruned, you may look at it, be like, oh man, this tree is ugly. It doesn't do those things. And it doesn't look like it's going to be amount to anything because all the branches is gone. It's just like a stick of wood sticking up in the air. And by you going over character, when you get a young man, he's like that tree, don't know nothing, prune, scrawny, but you bringing out like his trustworthiness, you're bringing out his accountability, you're planting them seeds of compassion, you getting them tough, to get the toughness, the mental toughness that's going to create the positivity, and then better yet, out of the gratitude, appreciation, and kindness, compared to when that tree is fully blossoming, you're blossoming a young man, a teammate, a servant, and things like that. So I used it as the pruning concept towards the character building as a whole. Yeah, I just wanted to share that.
No, I appreciate that.
That's
awesome. That was some good stuff. That was some good stuff, though. That's all I'm saying. Yeah.
Yeah. Don't let him trick you. He's very good at his job, right? I always compliment my brother because I know he cares, and that is it. On my journey, it was the statement that he made: "Don't be part of the problem." Right. And he is, he don't know, look at it that way, but I look at him as one of my mentors. So I appreciate that. We're going to move on and keep it moving. We're going to turn this over to David Edwards. And David Edwards of Developing Young Athletes, you have the floor.
Okay, so thanks again, everybody, having on. Actually, Cornell, what you just saying ties into where I'm going. Two things are, and everybody thinks of injury prevention, it's a broad stroke word, correct? Discipline, character, and we're going to look at pruning a tree because using that as an analogy is what a developing young athlete is. Our organization, a little bit background on me, I've been a former athlete, also coached 20 plus years at different levels, basketball, track, also had a wellness organization with one of my old partners that was in physical therapy. I worked in physical therapy for 7 years. We're licensed, certified in different areas with injury prevention and looking at movement. I want you to remember that word movement that is critical with injury prevention. Developing young athletes, we have two different areas, and at the end we have network. What we're doing right here is called a network, correct? And what you look at it, our whole thing, our motto is no one develops an athlete alone. And when I look at an athlete, we look at an individual. So in our organization, we help create athletic and life skill building programs in two different areas. And this is going to help explain some of the questions that come in. But for everyone listening, you need to understand the structure of what we bring to the table to explain this. When we look at developing an athlete, we look at two different components with our company. We have a media company. We have a podcast. We have a website. We deal with social media. On our podcast show, we interview and we deal with a global network of organizations and individuals that bring those references and sources to our listeners. And through that, we give that free information. And that's everything from coaching Cornell at your level to professional athletes, professional coaches, owner of pro organizations, physicians that are part of the NBA, a lot of different areas without dropping names and all. But here's the reason we've done that. No one can be a specialist in a certain area. But if I can give those resources and information, guess what? That's connected resources and information for coaches, parents, athletes, and anyone who works with those athletes. Now, you're probably asking, how does this all tie into injury prevention? Well, within our organization, we have a dimension of what we do as far as working directly with athletes from kindergarten all the way through to high school, 9th, 10th grade. I want everyone to think of a pyramid as a platform, and I want you to remember movement, as I talked about before. In order to look at injury prevention, I also have to look at movement. And if I look at a pyramid, the peak of the pyramid is only as tall as its foundation. Within foundational development, we have to look at coordination and movement efficiency. The more movement efficiency and coordination within the platform of my development at an early age, guess what? I can build the higher tiers getting up to sport-specific levels at the top of that tier. So at the younger age of development, starting at kindergarten, one thing that is very important that probably all of you heard of is physical literacy and fundamental movement skills. Talked about it earlier, Cornell, when we were kids, what did we do? And I've had multiple level of athletes, coaches, everything. We're all on the same page. This is just not me talking. You talked about how it's changed with disciplined athletes. It's also changed with movement. We talk about reading literacy and mathematics, but a lot of kids don't know how to function and move anymore. They don't know the alphabets of movement. So what we do is starting at that level to the middle level, as far as elementary and going into junior high school, is that at each stage of development, there's certain things that they need. First, you need to learn how to move. And through moving, then we can start to add on to that with strength, power, conditioning, specific skills. But if kids don't first learn how to move, I can't load off of that. An example I use is jumping. So for the kids that are listening, because they're saying, how does this apply to me? In the beginning, I have to learn how to hop, how to skip, how to jump, correct? Now, when they get older, what do I have to learn? If you think of some of the screening and pro screens that they do, I know we're certified with functional movement screen, which the NFL uses. They look at movement patterns to identify where there might be some inefficiencies. And if there's optimal performance, a person has to be able to move well. So if I'm jumping, and let's say with basketball, we'll use it right now since we have Coach Cornell, you deal with basketball, Coach Mann. If I'm looking at creating that force and production to jump, first they need to learn how to load and jump and to land. And they need to learn the mechanics of it. They need to learn what valve is. I had a pro coach on that was telling me they didn't even know about that. One of the things with ACL is landing. Understand what we offer too is that information that they can download is, well, how do I look at loading? Well, loading is with weights, but how do I screen a squat? What am I looking for that can be inefficient, that can lead to injury? ACL, huge injury, a lot of young women, female athletes, but you see it in pro ball as well. So what we do at each level, and it's important right now, what kids have is idle time. So what I say is that you must master the basics, the basic things of strength and conditioning and movement while they're at home. And as they do that, it can help them perform better. Now, use LeBron James as an example. LeBron invests over $1.5 million. There's a lot of things that are functional with movement and recovery. And a lot of things with educational component is it's important that parents, coaches, and athletes understand. And here's the thing. When we get up to the higher tier system of coaching, the money is there, right? When you get to your higher levels of pros have something that is, and you know, in NBA, it's called load management, right? Load management is looking at if I'm feeling pain or aches or anything, they're managing that load as far as the games they play to pull them out to make sure they're healthy through the season. Another thing they have is what's called performance therapy. Well, what is performance therapy? It's a combination of a performance strength and conditioning coach and a therapist. And what are they looking to do? They're not looking at it as being reactive to an injury. They're looking to say, let's assess their movement and getting them better so they can perform at their optimal level. And that's what's important now with some of the questions that I have here that I'll bring up to you with some solution that we have to look at. Yeah, skills they need to learn, dribbling, they need to learn running patterns as far as in football, certain things there. But what's even more important is that the kinks in the armor, how do I add that layer of armor to the body so it can function way beyond sports? Because the end of the day is this when I'm looking at athlete. I'm a former athlete and I have injuries. Could I avoided those injuries? There's some statistics out there. 5 million injuries last year was in youth sports. How can we prevent that? We can prevent it by looking at how we improve their movement, how we're getting educated at the levels too, as far as coaches and getting parents and getting them the resources and information to help them. Because let's face it, when we start looking at junior high and some high schools, and we look at even the younger programs, what's not there is some of the knowledge levels that are at the higher level. So what happens to a lot of the kids? They lack that. And what does this also do? We're talking about gives them an infrastructure of purpose, right? And so when you look at, when you give them these goals and these things that they can do at this time and giving them metrics with it, you can help them get better by saying, hey, let's look at these things that you can do here and what can help you get better. Because the worst thing you want to do with a chronic condition that could have been eliminated or not even looked at that you could have learned at a younger age. Now let's look at some questions here. These are some questions that I've asked as far as some parents and coaches. I've had some people, first of all, focus on what you can control, right? And we have to have empathy because everybody's household is not the same right now. So we're dealing with different situations in these households. Some people might be running into financial problems because guess what? Jobs are being cut back. So we have to understand each child in that situation has something different. But my whole thing is this, is that when I've asked this question during the pandemic, what can my child do? First of all, is I want to know what they want to achieve. And through learning and what they want to achieve, let's put metrics to that. Now you talked about accountability. I have something called accountability chart. Don't forget what I say, watch what I do. And there's metrics to that. So while they're home, I think it's highly imperative that we keep connections with them. If you're a coach, if you're a parent, and that you educate yourself as well in these areas. Because here's the thing that we do with some of the information that they can go and get from us right now through our sites and listening to some of our information that's free, is that I think it's highly imperative that we're talking about it now. What you said, your brother is a mentor, it's a networking thing. They need mentors, they need connections with the organizations they're doing here, but this is another thing that they need. Parents need to understand something when it comes to entry. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm reactionary. You want to have a collaboration of what's out there. So if my child was to get injured and I have a pediatric physician, I need to know, well, if it's surgery involved, what do you know about what doctor to recommend them to? Is it any doctor? If it's a sports-related injury, does that doctor deal with geriatric population? You'd be surprised if parents don't know that. If they're going to therapy, every therapist is not for every child that deals with sports. If I'm a high formula car, am I taking it to a engine, a shop that doesn't deal with the high performance car? Guess what? There's connections to get you that. We have the links on our sites for that. There's things out there that parents can do right now. From an athlete's perspective, I always ask them this. First of all, you got to have a visual. They got to write this stuff down in a plan and a goal, but also have a vision board and work and master the basics, the body movement. This is not just me talking. I've heard coaches at the next level talk about this too in strength and conditioning, is that kids need to work on the basics there. And that means with body movement and control, core stability. Some things I've heard from some higher levels that deal with scouting is that, and this was I heard in baseball, and I've heard this with a lot of things. If anything, any of you young kids right now is understanding body awareness and coordination and balance. Those are critical. And with balance and coordination comes postural control, with core, with strength. Those are things you can work on right now. And not only just doing the exercise, coaches, you got to know what they're doing. How do you know what's a proper push-up? How do you know what's a squat? If you're loading weight, do you know an Olympic lift? How many kids go to the college level don't even know how to Olympic lift? Every major program does it, and that's basketball, track, football. They all know Olympic lifts, don't they? But kids don't know it, and so they're doing things wrong. So what's going to happen to them in the future? And a kid that is injured, guess what? Depression and all these things you're about to talk about, Calvin, it's a domino effect that goes in that area with it tear down, right? And so we got to educate ourselves. And this is what I say to coaches. And you said one thing about character and discipline, but passion has to be there too. You know, a friend of mine is a pro scout for baseball. And he says when he goes out and they scout, and he deals with high school recruits too. And when they go out and they look in scouting, guess what they also look at? They go to practice. They don't even tell the kids that they're at the practices. Kids listen up. But they're also looking at the character of the parents. How is their attitude? How are they structured? So parents, listen up. He says, we've been there and some kids, well, look how he's practicing. I don't want him. I mean, he has a prima donna attitude. The parent is not even correcting them at these games. The parent is the entitlement mentality. Do you see where I'm going with this? Is these are things right now that as parents, I know we need to educate ourselves. And the way we look at injury is from this standpoint. Kids, you got to speak up. If something's hurt, pain, be a guy. But on the other end with parents, you got to look at their gait, their walk. You know if your kid is hurting. You can tell if they're playing or not. I had a parent talk to me about her daughter, and I kept her out of running, is that she said her knee hurts. I said, well, you sure her knee hurts? Because she acts like it's not. And I held her out of things. Here's what happened. Mother started watching everything she was doing. And she noticed when she didn't even know her mother was watching or was around, she saw those things. So parents, you got to have a connection with your kid. And this is what I say to you coaches out there, questions I was asked, is that coaches, this is the first time professional development. We do it in everything else. So this is the time right now. There's some resources out there. I know hospitality, this specialty surgery out of New York is one of the top orthopedic hospitals in the country. A lot of those physicians deal with a lot of the NBA and NFL teams out in New York. They have free information on sites with training that you can take to learn certain things. I know we deal with ACL injury prevention. We deal with movement screenings. We deal with a lot of stuff that we're certified through with our company. But here's the thing. Some of these things you need to learn too, because if I'm hosting a practice, are you hosting it right? Are you doing the dynamic warm-ups? Are you looking for any inefficiencies? And what I mean by that, any patterns that you can correct as a coach. And I'm not saying you have to be a specialist, but there's some simple things that you can learn. Because here's the thing. We want to make sure at the end of this that the young athlete is able to perform at the next level, being out of sports. And I say this to close out with what we have, and I open the floor for questions, is that, Cornell, you made a good point. And my whole thing with going to college is that as they develop, if they want to go to that level, is also use that to brand you. Use that to market and promote yourself. Don't just get the paper, network. We're networking here. Our organization is about networking. We create networks. The reason we're all sitting here today is a network process. In areas where you're strong, you're talking, correct? And so that's what we want to do, because I don't have all the answers or solutions, but technology is able to us to bring people, and us internationally bring people to connect with things I wish I had before. I wish I had access to some of the things that we can do today. But back then we didn't have that, but we can today. And so I'll close out with that, and I'll open up the floor for any questions that someone might have, or anyone.
Well, again, that's some good information, and the reason why we did this was to make sure that the parents understood, for sure, because when we interview our mentees, one of the first questions we kind of ask our mentees is, what do you want to be? Mm-hmm. Right? And every little boy we talk to, I can go back the last 12 years, is either football or basketball, some baseball, right? So we don't knock sports, but our motto is we use the ball. We don't let the ball use us, right? So we use the sport. And to get this information to the parents about them understanding the importance of warming up, training, and, letting the kid develop is very, very important. My question would be, where can they really get the proper charts or sheets on the internet to learn how to stretch? And this is for them as well, because right now, what you're speaking of, health is a big issue with this crisis, and us learning to stretch and stretch properly and to prevent injuries and making sure that we're doing things at a certain pace is important. So it's not just about the kid or the athlete, it's about the ex-athlete and the parent. So where can we find some of that information?
Well, that's something I didn't get. We're creating, as we speak now, a library with that. They're showing those movements, but then I have access to other sites as well. Hospitality is specialty surgery is one that is there. And anyone, you can reach out to our website, email me, contact me. I'll give you those links. Through previous podcasts, I highly recommend it. I'm not trying to market the show, but here's the thing that I will push to you parents. They're experts in their fields. What you just asked me, that's on there. And I make a thing when people contact to be on our show, and we are. And I'm excited. We've been listed as one of the top young athlete development podcasts internationally. Here's where I'm at with that. It's free. Use it. I mean, the thing is that if something's provided with you, it's up to you to use it. Go out there and get that information. And here's my thing about this. Part of the caveat we have is sports, but it's bigger than sports. Development is beyond sports. I mean, let's face it, it's a lottery to go pro. We got to change that model. What I really stress is the infrastructure that we do as far as discipline to get to that point. Because what I'm talking about here with these metrics of development along the line of development is teaching them character and all those things we just talked about. Because guess what? There's measurables you have to keep. And if you look at any, and since we're on athletes, if you look at any high-level pro athlete, they didn't get there on their talent alone. Their sacrifice, and that's anything, that's business, right? And to have a great plan, you have a great model of potential for success. And the thing is that I want all of you to understand this, listening to athletes to get this and parents too. And you young coaches, let me say this before I say this I'm about to say. In every other field, if you're an entrepreneur, you gotta constantly, right now, I'm still taking certifications and continuing with schooling. It doesn't stop. If you're coaching and you don't have a passion right now, step away. If you're a mentor, step away. Don't do it. My thing is that you gotta, because you know what, this world is constantly evolving. I'm learning things with technology we're doing now with our library and apps we're looking to put out. I'm a little old school, but guess what? I'm churning every day, 4 a.m. it starts. And it's not about, you know, everyone says the grind. Well, you know what? You got to identify what the grind is for you. What is your why every day, young athlete? I mean, it has to be beyond that, because this is what I want you to add into what you're doing. I'll close out with this. Calvin, hopefully that answers your question, is that you need to identify what is your drive and your goal, and you need to commit it, and you need to look at that on a consistent basis. Like, and if you want this accountability chart we haven't had, we'll get it to you. Just connect with us and we'll get it to you. I have an email to your parents or whoever needs it. But it looks at, if I say I'm doing something today, it's a list of it. So if I say these things are listed, Monday through Sunday, I put a check what I've done on those days. I don't have to say anything else to you. You look at the reflection in the mirror and you tell me, did you do it or didn't you do it? It's on you. I have a daughter right now. She's a senior in high school. She missed her senior year running. I don't have to tell her to train. We're at home now. Guess what? It became who she is. But you know what that's teaching her? Character to get up and do it, things on her own. It's structure. Forget about sport, and don't take it wrong, young athlete. This is something teaching you a structure of development. Development is beyond the sport. I'm a former athlete, but what relevance does it have now? I don't care if you're a Pro Bowler, Hall of Famer. Guess what? Makes no difference at the end of the day, right? So I'll close out with that. And again, Calvin, hopefully answer the question that you had.
No, did a great job, right? I really appreciate you. And we're going to keep it rolling. No questions, anybody. So, you know, that brings us to smash suicide, right? The reason why, for me, that I got involved in this conversation, I kept noticing, you know, how suicide was getting younger. And as I moved into, you know, constantly looking at the young men that we were mentoring, we wasn't getting those stories. And, you know, took a look, looked at the evaluation of our program and realized that the way that we mentor, we were smashing suicide. And, you know, suicide will show you a few things. And so I'm going to get right into that, right? So the number 2 killer, kids 10 to 24, if you haven't seen our video, is suicide. Suicide is something, you know, is unseen. It's like what you were saying about sacrifice, right? A lot of times I was telling my son earlier today, a lot of people don't see people sacrifice. Well, a lot of us, we don't see what's happening to these kids. And suicide is such a huge phenomenon. Again, Black boys ages 5 to 12 is number 1 in suicide. And so I had to get up because I was a Black boy. And so I understand some of the dynamics that goes into it. So I'm going to share a few of them with you. And to let you know some of the signs that you need to look for in suicide, because it's so important that we start recognizing what is going on with our children. You know, a lot of our children are in fights with bullying, they're with themselves, the whole nine. And sometimes we work so hard that we're not paying attention and we're not giving them the love. As a matter of fact, there was a study, 49 million parents, 2-parent homes, really have not paid attention to their children. The inactive of the father, even being in the household. So with that being said, one of the first signs you need to recognize with kids is their long history of problems with home or school. We see a lot of young men and young people being kicked out of school, right? Our kids, black kids, number one, right? From the daycare, we're kicking out young black boys, right? And so that is one area that has built this long problem around schools and home. Second is they suffer from low self-esteem. Low self-esteem is a big thing. It's a big milestone. A lot of adults suffer from it, but imagine a child, right? And I was one of those children, right? That, used to say I didn't love myself, and I come from, like Corn said, we come from a different era. I could only go to that door a couple of times, talking about I was running away, and I had to learn the hard way for where I come from, because I got a big family and I got brothers and sisters that love me. Third is sometimes they believe no one cares, right? So, you'll see a young man, he's sitting still, or you're talking to him, and I don't know how many people are paying attention, but when you go into a school, our boys are more emotional than our girls. And so when you see a young man, he's being quiet, he's not having a conversation, you need to be concerned. You have to find a way to get him to talk. Number 4 is depression. Some of us have a little bit of form of all of it, but depression is a big issue with our young children. What they see, one of our quotes is, sometimes the things we see defines our decision making. And it's what we see in our homes, in our neighborhoods, right, on our televisions, right? We're constantly reinforcing, which is why you have to watch your screen time with your children, because we're constantly being conditioned and reinforced to not love ourselves and to be depressed. Even there's medicine. And so a lot of these kids, right, we notice opioid use is through the roof. And on the backside of opioid use for a lot of kids is suicide, right? We're not solving the issue, but we're going to give you some things to help solve that, right? And so one of the things you should know about children, right, that die by suicide is important for you to understand. There's really, the kids that's 5 to 11, there's really no statistical information. But the one thing that is consistent for that age group is that they usually have problems with family and friends. And we hear it all the time. You hear adults say, I'm through with family, the whole nine. And then I always answer, right? I always answer, your family is human, right? So you can go to your family, even if you think they might have the money, they might not. Even if you think, if they can't give you something, because we living in this society where you think I'm supposed to give you everything, and sometimes you got to earn some things. And earning and having a certain amount of loyalty and discipline and character, as we talked about, and understanding of what we do fundamentally, as you talked about, is important to our families and our children. So here's a list of 10 things, right, that we use in our mentoring program, right?
I'm sorry. Can before you go on, what was number 2? I missed it. I'm writing it down, but I missed it.
Number 2 was suffer low self-esteem.
Okay, thank you.
And so these are the 10 things we use in our Emiy Future Leaders program, where we teach the young man to lead, so the young men are able to recognize, right, as we were building these young men, we teach them to recognize signs in other kids and be there. We teach our young men how to develop brotherhood, how to look out for each other, how to use your words in a positive way. But before I get into that, I want to reiterate that reading is life. Men who read to their children affect their reading levels tremendously. Fathers who read. So reading is life. Let's remember to teach our children, especially our boys, to read, 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 because that way they're able to fly and soar, and they learn different things, right? They learn different lessons, and it kind of helps build their self-esteem. So I'm gonna get right into it. Our way is encouragement. Encourage Me, I'm Young has been around since I started in 2004, but 2007 got the nonprofit. 2010, 350 males. Now going into this is our from 2007. This is our 13th year, 2020. We built our program award winning, and we continue to create the next level of leaders, and understanding exactly what we talk about, David and Corn, about how important it is for our young men to lead, not just be on campus and sitting around and playing the player game, but know who the alumni is, know where you're going to work and learn, and take advantage of this campus, because that scholarship is worth more to you than you really know. But you need to have character and discipline and some fundamentals. So with us, our first thing on how we smash suicide is, and we tell the parents this as well, they get this in the handout. One is encourage even the smallest effort. Small efforts may appear little, but to the doer, having the effort recognized can mean a great deal. Number two, stop finding fault with wrong and applaud the right. By nitpicking and projecting our own insecurities and irritations onto others, we fail to see what the other person is doing right. By noticing the things done well and downplaying the things we're not happy about or don't like, we can help them be better. Number three, look for outwardly ways to show encouragement to a person. A smile, a thumbs up, pat on the back, or clapping and cheering, or just saying, good job, it really works. We make sure that all of our mentors are trained in this field, making sure that we use our words to impact. One of our number one rules in our mentoring program is you cannot use the N-word, right? When you cannot use the N-word, immediately our boys are impacted verbally to speak correctly and use their words to encourage their peer partner and everyone else involved in the program. Number four is reject negative responses. These are the reactions such as frowns or pouts. Learning how to bounce back and remove the hurt is important. It is called resiliency, which both of you men so eloquently spoke about. Having resilience is huge. It helps you bounce back. Think with a helping spirit rather than an attacking one. So let me help you out here. You're doing great, but try it this way, right? Try our way. We know that you have good job, you've gotten it this far, but we want you to try it this way, see if this works for you. Number five, make positive comments. Tell people how well they have performed at something. Face their fears, overcome obstacles, succeed at even the smallest things. Even if you feel dislike for a person or feel competitive towards them, there is always at least one thing about them that you can honestly say is positive. So dig for that and tell this person, again, good job. I appreciate it. It was a great day. We live to battle another day. Number six, write or use encouraging comments. When you fail to give good direction on what needs to be improved, and in a positive way, it is often difficult for someone to receive your help. Instead of being negative, make comments such as, I really like how you did that. I bet you will get them all correct next time, or you've done a lot of work here and it's making a difference. Constantly using our words to move the needle is what we do. We don't allow negativity around our children in our mentoring program, and we will check it immediately from parents on across the board, how they come into the building, how they conduct themselves in front of the kids. That's what we do. That's how we are. Number 8 or 7, right?
Yep.
Tell people positive things about themselves. People love to hear how you perceive them in a positive light. All too often, we are our own worst critics. And can be surprisingly uplifting to hear someone else tell us quite the opposite of our worries. For example, you can point out how kind, caring, helpful, thoughtful, considerate, strong they are. We're constantly doing that, right? And our kids have to fight to be in the middle. And what we mean by fight, they have to earn their way to get in the middle of that circle to lead the program. Number 8, notice when someone does something good. We can admire the way people look or have courage to look or act differently using personal compliments. You serve as the role model. How we do things, how we do those things, and how we live in front of other people is so important. And because of that, it's what the child will model in the home, in the neighborhood, in the streets. It is what the child will model. We need to understand that as a role model, we play a role in modeling what they need to see. We are accountable in front of our children. Number 9, keep it honest. Keep it real. Complimenting from the heart. I think you guys did a great job. It's very important that people learn what you have to say. And the fact that you guys came in here and laid it out, I'm sure that there will be some parents who get exactly the information that they need to get from your messaging. It was so important that you participated in this. And I appreciate you. 10, don't say anything when you're feeling mean. We all feel mean at times, often when we're tired, run down, hungry, and feel humiliated in some way. It happens. And it's part of life's journey to learn how to manage our own blues and downtimes. One important lesson is to learn is not to say negative and discouraging things just because you are angry or hurt. Instead, you can insert an encouragement or simply say nothing at that time, right? So was guilty of that, right? So I let my emotions, and we must learn to contain our emotions. And I let my emotions get the best of me a couple of times. And then what I had to learn was to corral them, right? And not respond to what it was doing to me. Better yet, having control of me, understanding that this is part of life. And because I have that emotional control, now I understand where I may have went wrong. And so there was some apologizing, those things where you have to go in and sincerely apologize. But it's important that we don't say things when we're mean. When we were coming up, that was normal. Like we'll say anything, we'll fly off the head, right, and say anything. And when you are hurting or in pain, these are some of the things that kids say. Even your own kids will say some mean things to you. I'm a perfect example of that, and that's just them learning how to control their emotions. And so that's what we have to do when we're parenting, teaching, mentoring, and growing, making sure that we don't say mean things, because once we build them, when we chop them with mean things, it really affects them. And so with that being said, I'm going to give you the national hotline for suicide, which is 1-800-273-8255. For Dave and everyone on the call, for us locally, Detroit Wayne Mental Health Authority is there for all of us. They have a number of programs. One of them, the number is 1-800-241-4949. So if you know someone dealing with alcoholism, you know someone dealing with drugs, the whole nine, needs some mental health, things like that, they can call that number and they'll make sure that they get the proper information and be guided to what they need to solve the problem. I really appreciate you guys. I'd love for you, Cornell, to go if there's some way that someone can, before I do that, let's go back to the gift. So Cornell is offering any parent that want this poster in their home. On the poster is keys to success, as he talked about early. And on the poster is accountability. Are you reliable, trustworthy? Develop your soul, love and respect, compassion, have concern for others, toughness, push through difficult times, and gratitude, being thankful, show appreciation and kindness. You can get that poster. You can send us an email to send us your email, your address, or your name to Emiy Inc. or Emiy or info@emyworld.com or Emiy Inc. EMIYINC @gmail.com. And we'll make sure you, your organization, or whoever gets a poster. But Corn, go if there's any way, your last message or anything you'd like for them to do, if they can reach out to you any kind of way. A parent, I know you always are handling parents. You do a great job of that. If you want to leave some information for them, you can go right ahead at this time.
Well, I can be reached, whatever, social media, you can reach me under my full name, Cornell Mann. I think Twitter is 8 Mile Corn. The one thing I will say is, I've helped more student athletes go to other schools than to go to the school that I was at. And so I'm always willing to be a go-between, because I got mad relationships at the college level, no matter what level it is, and at the high school or grassroots level. And so all I do is become a go-between and connect people, and I've been doing that for years. So if anybody feel like their kid is really good, or if, it don't matter what sport it is, even if they feel like their kid is not getting the looks they should get, I'm very honest with them. If they send me and ask me my opinion, I'll be honest and say, well, in my estimation, kid is probably Division II. They probably hang up on me right away. But I'll be honest with every parent or every student athlete in terms of where I think I can help them at. And so they can reach me there. They can also reach me at Mann, CT, MANN, CT @missouri.edu, @missouri.edu. Anybody can reach me at that email.
Awesome. Brother David?
You can reach our organization at dyanetwork.org. Go to our contact page. You can go there. Any information you need, there's downloadables, all information on our site. If there's anything that I talked about today that you want, you can contact me there. You can contact me at this email address, teamdyanetwork@gmail.com. Again, I highly recommend parents anything. Go to ours also for, we have goal setting sheets, everything on the site that's under the podcast episodes that are there. And on our landing page, you also find out for sports injuries, we have some alliances and collaborations with companies that give downloadables that is part of Andrews. If anybody knows Orthopedic Andrews, Stop Sports Injuries, we have an alliance with them. And all of those things are downloadables telling you steps to what can be done to prevent certain types of injuries that you can get right from the site as well.
Awesome. So with that being said, you can reach me, Calvin Mann, at info@emyworld.com. Of course, you can reach me on Facebook. My email again, info@emyworld.com. And we want to thank you guys for coming on. Remember, with Encourage Me, I'm Young, we are smashing suicide. So in the fall, any young man that you think needs mentoring, there's some things that we're going to be doing coming down the line. I also want you to shameless plug, run out and get the Adventures of Ober and Luther, our book with the 10 lessons for our children. And with that being said, we're going to sign off here. Hey, I love what you're doing. Thank you for coming on, Brother Jefferson, Miss Miller.
No problem.
iPhone, and I wanted to make sure this has been a great recording. And if you guys don't mind, I thank you. We could not have done it without you, and we look forward to growing the relationship there with you and your family as well. And moving forward, remember, beautiful is the only way to save family. Encourage Me, I'm Young. Thank you.